Welcome back to the ROKK Rundown. We're excited to talk to you today. This week was a week that started on Sunday night. We saw a lot of, Sunday's not usually a busy night for activity. Let's talk a little bit about the Fed and what Jerome Powell did as a communications tactic. I'm going to start with you, Ron.
Yeah, wow. So there I am watching Landman on Sunday night with my wife, my beautiful wife, and all of a sudden I see that Jerome Powell is responding to the DOJ investigation. This is all unfolding while I'm watching TV, what is normally a quiet evening. There's no quiet evenings anymore, and I looked at the video and I thought to myself, okay, tomorrow is going to be a very busy day for everyone. But I thought, immediately, he is communicating to me. He's communicating to millions of Americans, to the media, to influencers, to especially members of Congress on Capitol Hill, that he wants to stand for an independent agency and trying to get his points across while the news is unfolding on a DOJ investigation. He had that opportunity, being the Fed chair, which is actually a really rare move. When have you seen a Fed chair do this type of response? It's usually very boring press conferences where we're talking about interest rates and people kind of snooze until you hear they're going down or they're going up. So anyway, that's my hot take.
What was your thought when you saw that?
I had two. One was what happened that night, and then what happened after. It's interesting. You think of Jerome Powell, he's a pretty unassuming person. I would not call him a dynamic speaker, but I think in some ways that works to his advantage. And I was thinking a lot about this. I'm like, well, when you're the person who gave, and no one really thinks about the Fed chair and the message discipline that you need to have, because you say the wrong thing, the market's going this way or the market's going that way. And so I was watching him and I'm like, this was very unassuming, but it was also very earnest. It was very to the point. It was not hyperbolic. He hit all of his points. It was 2 minutes. It wasn't too long. It gave you everything that you needed, and then it set off the rest of this firestorm. The second thing was you're never going to be able to convince me that this was not a coordinated cascade. The letter with the remaining living Fed chairs coming out, talking about what a travesty this was, Jamie Dimon and others that are well respected on Wall Street coming out and saying how big of a mistake this was. I do think that the congressional, at least some of the congressional response was, we were blindsided, what's going on? Although it would not surprise me if there were also a few that kind of knew in advance that this might be happening and helped amplify that as well. I think this was just a masterclass in not only how you communicate, but then the amplification, the organic amplification after, in order to make the point.
You and I both have been part of crisis moments that go on for too long because the narrative isn't owned from the start. And that was my takeaway from Sunday. He came right out and he set the tone for how his side of the story would be told, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say that DOJ investigation is largely going to go away, or feels like it's going away. That was wrapped up, that media cycle was wrapped up within 48 hours or less. I mean, especially when members on the Hill, I should back up. Especially when President Trump said he didn't know anything about the investigation, and he made sure he had arm's length away from Pam Bondi. Additionally, the Wall Street Journal had a story on Monday that talked about how he is unhappy with Pam Bondi, been unhappy with Pam Bondi lately. And that was very interesting. I don't know if that was, I think that was more coincidental than anything, but it sure helped the president. Additionally, Republican leaders on Capitol Hill distancing themselves immediately from all this.
And strenuously.
Right. The oxygen was taken out of the room. There was no more fire. And by Tuesday, it was gone. On to new things.
Yeah. The other thing that I'd say, I thought it was interesting. It was a small piece of this, but the little shiv to Bill Pulte of that, this was all his idea, and then he had to come out and say, I absolutely had nothing to do with this, or I knew nothing about this as well.
I think it's something that we will see again, because I think, as you say, a masterclass, it's a great example of how getting out in front of the narrative, owning it right from the start, really does set the tone for how the news will cover it long afterward.
I would just add that I would add that it depends on who comes out to say what they're going to say to try to get ahead of it. They have to have that credibility with the media and with the American people, you know, and with influencers and stakeholders who can comment on the process. You know, a CEO could come out against, you know, a politician, but if they have them build that credibility, they may not be believable.
Great point. Great point. Well, thanks for joining us this week for the ROKK Rundown. We'll be back again next week.